Okay, so here I am about ready to start Wilson's Creek. I've made my decision as to where I'm going to enter. Now, historically, the main Union force entered from up here, and Sigel entered from up here. Looking at the terrain victory points, however, by picking entry option 1, I can reduce the value of Ray's house somewhat for the Confederates. It's not the worst they could get. If I enter from 4, Ray's becomes unimportant to the Confederates, basically. But entry 4 causes a penalty to the, an advantage to the Confederates in terms of being able to activate. So starting on turn 3, they have a chance of activating, even if the Union doesn't catch them. Now, what's the advantage with Ray's is you can kind of march and maybe avoid this picket here and hit the very center of the Confederate army and really kind of drive them into the river here. And if we look terrain-wise, river is prohibited. There's no attacks going through it, and let's see how it is here. It's a prohibited action to even cross it. So that could be a very, very vile attack, slamming the Confederates up against the river here where they may end up surrendering. That's definitely appealing, but the time it would take to maneuver around there looks like, well, there's a chance they might wake up before you hit them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse the historical setup and send Lyon up here to drive down into the cornfield. And it looks just about as long, but the bonus is I get to make some strikes across. I get this nice ridge here. The Confederates don't have a ridge here. They do have a streamline, which is going to be something of a problem. But at the same time, I'm going to send Sigel down from here with the intention of driving over to the Ray house. And then from there, he can push in a coordinated position or just hold his place there because he doesn't have a lot of troops. There's a couple cavalry, a couple infantry, and a pretty potent artillery battery. I don't know if that's going to work better, but we'll see how it all plays out. And there's our initial line of attack. Moving the main force up this way to cut around through Sharp's cornfield. I'm planning on putting Lyon somewhere around here so he can command that wing, but also command Andrews's forces, which are going to slam down this way. It's kind of a splitting of forces in a way that I don't really like doing. It's a little risky, especially putting Lyons out on his own. I may have to pull one of these independent cav over to help guard him. Down here we've got Sigel pushing forward just out of range for these guys so that they don't wake up, so he can storm forward and attack. Some cav here, which will move forward to try to scare that up. They've got Sharp's carbines. If you look real close, you can see that. Those very, very effective weapons. Early in the war to have them, too. I think I'll switch these guys, because I think I'm going to send this cav over to help guard Lyons. Anyway, there's nothing the Confederates can really do. So this goes forward, not until the alert marker comes. Now the Confederates go first each turn, but they're not awake yet. So we get another Union turn. Not a lot different there, I just forgot to move these cavalry. These are independent, they can run off on their own, they don't have to be in command. They've decided to dismount. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to give them a defensive bonus because of the carbines, but I'll look that up to make certain. Either way, I want them dismounted because they have a more effective firepower, more effective morale, etc. They don't take hits as badly when they're not mounted. Got the main force moving up here. These guys are spreading out here. We're kind of at the limit here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hexes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hexes there. So I've got to bring these forces down before these guys can start cutting over further. That's why they've moved down. These guys have actually moved out of column formation, as has Sigel's command, and into a line, moving through. This is all. It's not actually woods. This stuff's woods here, but all this is just underbrush, I think. It's kind of hard to tell. Because here, and I think it's all brush. I don't think there's actually forest here. Let me see. We've got any indication? We've got brush here. Yeah, it doesn't look like we actually have forest in this, and they don't have it in the thing. So it's all just underbrush, and I think that has some defensive value, slightly. Some line of sight rolls I got to deal with. Yeah, slight shifting column strength for firepower. So in the exclusive rules, they explain the brush is a partial line of sight impediment. It doesn't affect artillery fire at all, but for a small arms fire, they can shoot through 2 hexes of it, but not through a third. So long range fire isn't going to work through all that brush with light infantry, with small arms fire, but pretty much once you get into effective range, if you look at these charts, and I got to look up that the cavalry there. It's probably listed somewhere. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the effects on the range. So rifled muskets aren't really effective past 3 hexes anyway. They're halved out there. And everything else in small arms doesn't work there. The Sharps carbines only go out to 3 hexes. I gotta look up to see if they have a defensive bonus in this game. I don't see any indication of that. That's something from TSS, where any breech loading weapons or pistols have a bonus because the firer could be lying down. I'm not sure why that was discarded, probably for simplicity's sake. And because we hit this mark, the Confederates got their chance to make an alert roll. Something, did somebody step on something they shouldn't have or whatever. Right now, we're getting pretty close to the moment of truth. The Union line beginning to form up over here. There's still troops in column back here, ready to hit these Confederate cavalry and send them running, they hope. Also a position, now this looks tiny compared to this, and that's kind of painful, but I want to send the gun crew and the men running, and I want to move forward here. We'll see how it all works out. I don't know. One of the things is it's kind of nice to hit them in the center, and that's not what I'm doing. I'm hitting them from many different sides with little forces. This could work very, very poorly. Over where the main force is, there's almost no resistance whatsoever. Of course, there was almost no resistance where they hit as well. This would have been the place to hit with the main force if you really wanted that, but the problem there is, how do you cross the river line? I want to break them here because this is where they retreat to. No matter what I do, they're going to try to come back to the center of their camp. And there's no way around that. They've got to fight for that center of the camp until they're demolished or they get it back, which is why I'm sort of moving in this direction. Plus Sharp's house and the defensive line for it all looks very appealing to me. So as we hit 6:20 in the morning, the Confederates failed their alert check, which means they don't know they're being attacked, and then the Union sweeps in. It comes down here and we can see the routing cav losing their horses. And over here, again, the cab and even the leader panic. Over here, a couple of units of infantry panicking. This guy's standing still, but he's not too happy because he's getting hit in the flank. He's going to have some real problems there. And over here, we also are going to see some real problems. I haven't done the fire yet. I'll be back to that in a bit. Okay, there's some interesting, taking care of the fire combat at this point. Some interesting differences that I note from what I remember of TSS, which I had to break out, by the way. This game doesn't come with a way of marking artillery losses. The series comes with Brigade Combat Effectiveness, where you mark things off on a piece of paper, and most of the games that contain it contain an artillery ammo track as well on that piece of paper, so you mark that off. But Terrible Swift Sword comes with all these little markers to mark the amount of ammo left on a artillery piece. Now in this game, there's 9 shots for both sides in both per gun, and when they run out, they run out. There's no ammo resupply whatsoever in this scenario, even though this system allows for it. But TSS only goes up to 8. 8 was the largest amount of ammo allowed. Basically, right now I'm using something that's empty on ammo. has its full load. If I start getting close to being empty, I'll change that, but I'm using these. And the way you differentiate them from the strength point markers is, well, they're parenthesized, which is exactly what TSS used. I think some people didn't like the big stacks of counters, but I never found it too annoying. Anyway, going back to here, there's some slight differences. For example, this flank shot that happened here, that didn't appear to get, I don't see any indication that there's any shift for that. No, I only skimmed the rules, but I was expecting to see that, and I did not. I think there was such in TSS, and I know there is in the Gamers ones, and it's kind of an odd thing that a flank or rear shot doesn't change that. I'm just a little surprised by that. And let's see, ammo depletions happen on ones, which indicates you don't even get a good hit. That I think is different. I remember, I think from when I played Stonewall, and everything else seemed a good hit caused the ammo depletion check, but maybe I'm mistaken there. Anyway, we didn't see any of that. What we see, though, is a couple of these pins. Now, they're going to come off automatically, and one routed unit. So, the Union didn't get its full firepower in, as it were. That's always the case when you're attacking. You have to take the defender's fire first. Now, the ex-wife wrote up one of these. Little sequence of play thing to keep track of stuff. There's not going to be any melee, so I'm just going to be doing the rally. One interesting thing with this, I don't remember, I think TSS had this as well. Leaders have two ratings. One is their range, but the other number here is points they can lend. So Lion lent 3 points up here to Sturgis so he can keep his command in command, or he can potentially do that next turn. Actually, there's an initial command phase where that's an issue. Now Sturgis, as long as he's got things in command, can rally this guy, which he wants to do, and we'll take care of that along with removing the pins. The Union didn't suffer any other casualties. The Confederates took 1 casualty point. Otherwise, everything just pretty much routed away rather than taking actual losses. As we move to the 640 turn, all the Confederate units that haven't seen the Union forces now make a check and have to perhaps route further. Likewise, the units that aren't able to rally have to continue routing towards the center of the Confederate command. And then they kind of stay and mull around there, which could be really, really a mess. The really huge problem for the Confederates is this army is not high quality. You're used to, maybe playing Gettysburg or some of these other battles where the armies are really professional quality. Well, the Union Army is largely so, but the Confederate Army is mainly made up of Missouri National Guard and recent volunteers. And you can just see how much of it's routed in there. It's about 50% routed. That's going to cause a lot of trouble. Trying to sort out the commands, too. This leader was nowhere near his troops. People are, running away from their leaders. Leaders are running away from their troops. This is actually one problem with it is, although I think I'm okay, I think I've got the right number of counters on the board right now, but because of the horse, losing your horses for the cav units, there are only a limited number of markers that work for that. I've replaced all the leader panic markers with route markers to make up for that. I don't see that as too significant a difference because the backs of the leader panic markers have the no horses, infantry only markers. But I just broke even this time. I think this is the first time I've ever played it where I had enough of those counters to cover all the cav that didn't have horses. Otherwise, I had to break down, some random blanks or something like that to use for it. All right, well, now I got to try to sort this Confederate mess out. Stepping back briefly to the flanking rules, I looked at them again. In the general description of combat, I'll grab this one. This is from P. Ridge, but it's supposedly the same system, and I don't think it's a different version. Over here in the procedure, they talk about the column can be modified as a result of defending in its facing formation or terrain. Great. That's what I expected, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. I see this density. I don't see it over here. I look in the rules under fire combat, I'm not finding it. And I was certain this existed. What I did find, though, is in the effects of the fire combat, not here in the effects of facing and formation. That doesn't cover it. In the effects of the fire combat, the results, it mentions that units that are being enfilade get a penalty to their morale check, which all makes sense. But I'm very disturbed that I can't seem to find a fire combat effect for the shift. I'm shocked by this, to tell you the truth. Maybe it's hidden over here or something. I certainly remember this being the case. But anyway, I haven't implemented it, so there we have that. Geez, I must have looked at this line several times and just not seen it. Yeah, there it is. The units fired upon through their rear enfilade hexes have their total fire strength adjusted 1 to the right. Fair enough. And mounted cav and units in column are always enfiladed. So there comes most of what I expected to see. I don't know how much of an effect it had. This enfilade here, I think, is the only one that would have been in effect. And it looks like we would have had the same result, I think. Wait, 10? Hit here? No, that would be a hit on him. So I'll drop a casualty on this guy. And he gets a 3 strength point under him. Alright, now I can resolve the Confederate player turn. So, after the initial rout, a little bit of rallying taking place, like Pierce is beginning to get some of his line into position here. Now, it's important he has to defend this area here. This is where the supply trains are. He can't get those across the river. There's a ford there. He can't cross the ford. In fact, there's no way for the supply wagons to make it across there. That puts the Confederates in a tricky position because they have to defend this, which kind of means Ray's house too. So they're kind of positioning themselves to defend on this side against a possible Sigel attack, and over here against Andrew's forces. Meanwhile, Lyons's forces up here are heading for the main area and perhaps most important, Sharp's house here. See, the Cav actually managed to largely rally. I was wrong, by the way. I've got an in-column marker instead of an infantry, no infantry marker. Most of the leaders, even Rains here, whose command is kind of routing through here and nobody can do anything about it, well, he's finally, he at least rallied so he can go try to take command of his unit and maybe park it up here near Ray's Carnfield to try and hold Sigel off. We got this little Cav guy here, a little speed bump in the way. But, yeah, for the most part, the Confeds look like they're shaping up and getting ready for the fight. Now, of course, their units are such crap that when the Union plows into these now infantry-only Cav, units, dismounted Cav that can't find their horses anymore, it's going to be a problem because most of these guys, well, these actually don't have bad morales. I'm looking at most of the Confederate stuff is ranging around 2 or 3, but there's some decent stuff there. Maybe the 2s and 3s are the guys still with route markers on them. All right, let's see what the Union can do here. And that's going to be the end of the turn, putting us at 7 in the morning. I'll mark these here. Things didn't go too well for the Union advance. Sigel's forces marched forward. Well, one of them got repulsed. Yes, they routed the thing in their way, but now Sigel's going to have to slow down to run back, rally that unit on his next move. It's quite a ways away, and that causes all kind of problems for his advance. Meanwhile, these guns are going to unlimber and start causing real problems to any attempt to cross that river. Also, I'm assuming Rains is going to try to put together his infantry there because unsupported guns aren't going to hold. Over here, the Confederates pinned a lot of those Union units so they didn't get to fire. Now they're going to get to fire defensively if the Confederates don't withdraw, which they probably will. They have no real desire to stand out in the middle of the cornfield getting shot up. And then the 2 rolls that the Union actually got to make for fire combat were both 1s. Now, they got a little lucky there. They didn't get an ammo depletion. They only deplete on a 1 instead of a 1 or 2 like everyone else. But over here, the Union did a pretty good job. They didn't take the gun, but they chased it away. It's routed. And they broke the line. There's only 1 unit left up there so that they can continue their advance on this side.